During my NDE, I realized something shocking that completely changed my view of Islam. But what awaited me on the other side was even more surprising. You might think that the Islamic faith is unshakable, but what I experienced made me question everything I believed. He was a successful businessman living in a bustling American city, with all the trappings of what many would call a perfect life. Yet, as he rose from his silk sheets and gazed out at the skyline, he couldn't shake the feeling that something vital was missing. Amir had grown up in a moderately religious family, observing the traditions and rituals of his faith with dutiful respect. But as the years passed and his wealth grew, he found himself increasingly disconnected from the spiritual practices that once brought him comfort. The prayers that used to fill him with peace now felt hollow, and the holy texts that once inspired him seemed to hold no answers for the questions burning in his heart. As he went through his morning routine, Amir reflected on the path that had led him to this point. He had worked tirelessly to build his company from the ground up, pouring every ounce of his energy into creating a thriving enterprise. His colleagues admired his drive and his employees respected his leadership, but few knew of the growing void within him. Stepping into his home office, Amir's eyes fell upon a framed photograph of his late grandfather. The wise old man had been a pillar of their community, known for his kindness and spiritual insight. Amir remembered the long conversations they used to have about life, faith, and the nature of the divine. His grandfather always emphasized the importance of seeking understanding beyond the surface level of religious doctrine. "My boy," he would say, his eyes twinkling with a mix of mischief and wisdom, "true spirituality is not found in rigid rules or mindless repetition. It's a journey of the heart, a quest to understand the deepest mysteries of existence and our place within them." Those words echoed in Amir's mind as he sat down at his desk, absently scrolling through emails. He realized that in his pursuit of material success, he had neglected the spiritual exploration his grandfather had so passionately advocated. The thought sent a pang of regret through him, but also ignited a spark of curiosity. As the day wore on, Amir found himself distracted from his work, his mind wandering to questions of purpose and meaning. What if there was more to life than the endless cycle of earning and spending? What truths might be waiting to be discovered if he dared to look beyond the familiar boundaries of his upbringing? That evening, instead of heading to his usual networking event, Amir found himself drawn to a small bookshop he had often passed, but never entered. The weathered sign above the door read, "Wisdom's Gate, Books for the Seeker's Soul." Something about it called to him, and before he knew it, he was pushing open the creaky wooden door. The scent of old paper and incense enveloped him as he stepped inside. Shelves lined with books of every size and color stretched from floor to ceiling, creating a labyrinth of knowledge. As his eyes adjusted to the dim lighting, Amir noticed an elderly woman sitting behind a cluttered desk, her silver hair gleaming in the soft lamplight. She looked up from her book and smiled warmly. "Welcome, seeker," she said, her voice gentle but filled with an undeniable strength. "What brings you to our humble abode of wisdom?" Amir hesitated, unsure how to articulate the restlessness that had led him here. I'm not entirely sure," he admitted. "I suppose I'm looking for something, though I can't quite say what." The woman's eyes twinkled with understanding. "Ah, the most profound journey often begins with uncertainty. Tell me, young man, what stirs your soul? What questions keep you awake at night?" Her words opened a floodgate within Amir. Before he knew it, he was pouring out his heart to this stranger, his feelings of spiritual emptiness, his yearning for deeper meaning, his fear that he had somehow lost his way in life. The woman listened intently, nodding occasionally, her weathered hands folded on the desk before her. When Amir finally fell silent, The bookshop keeper rose slowly from her chair. It seems to me," she said, moving towards one of the towering shelves, "that you are ready to embark on a journey of discovery, not just of the world around you, but of the vast universe that exists within your own heart." She ran her fingers along the spines of several books before pulling out a slim volume bound in deep blue leather. "This," she said, holding it out to Amir, "might be a good place to start." Amir took the book, feeling its weight in his hands. The cover bore no title, only an intricate geometric pattern that seemed to shift and change as he looked at it. "What is it?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. The woman smiled mysteriously. "It's a collection of wisdom from seekers throughout history, men and women from various traditions who dared to look beyond the boundaries of their own beliefs. It won't give you all the answers, but it might help you ask better questions." As Amir left the bookshop that night, the small volume tucked safely in his coat pocket, he felt a sense of anticipation he hadn't experienced in years. Little did he know that this encounter would be the first step on a journey that would transform his life in ways he could never have imagined. Over the next few weeks, Amir found himself completely absorbed in the book. Its pages contained a tapestry of thoughts and experiences from spiritual seekers across cultures and centuries. There were passages from Sufi mystics that resonated deeply with his own cultural background, alongside insights from Buddhist monks, Hindu yogis, Christian contemplatives, and Jewish Kabbalists. Each perspective offered a unique glimpse into the nature of reality and the human search for meaning. One passage in particular stood out to Amir. "The divine is not found in the confines of any single tradition, but in the open heart that sees the sacred in all things." These words challenged everything he had been taught about the exclusivity of religious truth, yet they awakened something deep within him, a longing for a more inclusive and expansive spirituality. As he delved deeper into his exploration, Amir began to notice subtle changes in his daily life. He found himself pausing to appreciate the beauty of a sunset, or taking a moment to really listen to a colleague's concerns. The mindfulness practices he discovered in the book helped him to be more present in each moment, and he started to see the interconnectedness of all things in a way he never had before. However, this newfound perspective also brought challenges. As Amir's worldview expanded, he found it increasingly difficult to relate to some of his old friends and business associates. Their conversations about material gain and status seemed shallow compared to the profound questions now occupying his mind. He began to feel like a stranger in his own life, caught between two worlds, the familiar landscape of his successful career and the uncharted territory of spiritual exploration. One day, while meditating in a quiet corner of a local park, Amir had an experience that would change the course of his journey. As he sat with his eyes closed, focusing on his breath, he suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of connection to everything around him. The boundaries between his body and the world seemed to dissolve, and for a brief moment, he felt as if he could sense the life force flowing through every blade of grass, every leaf on the trees, and every person passing by. When he opened his eyes, the world looked different. Colors seemed more vibrant, sounds more crisp, and he felt a deep sense of peace and clarity. In that moment, Amir understood that his search for meaning wasn't about finding answers outside himself, but about awakening to the truth that had been within him all along. Energized by this insight, Amir decided to take a sabbatical from his business to dedicate himself fully to his spiritual quest. He began attending interfaith gatherings, meditation retreats, and workshops on various spiritual practices. Each experience added a new layer to his understanding, like pieces of a grand cosmic puzzle slowly coming together. During a weekend seminar on comparative religion, Amir met Sophia, a professor of religious studies whose passion for interfaith dialogue matched his own growing interest. They spent hours discussing the common threads that run through different spiritual traditions, and Amir found himself drawn to her intellectual curiosity and open-minded approach to faith. As their friendship deepened, Sophia introduced Amir to a diverse group of spiritual seekers who met regularly to share their experiences and insights. In this circle, Amir found a sense of community he had been missing. People who understood his quest and supported his growth without trying to push him towards any particular belief system. One evening, as the group sat in a circle sharing their thoughts, an elderly Sikh gentleman named Harbhajan spoke words that resonated deeply with Amir. "My friends," he said, his voice filled with warmth, "we are all climbing the same mountain, just from different sides. The view may look different from where each of us stands, but the peak we seek is the same." This metaphor struck a chord with Amir, helping him to reconcile the diverse perspectives he had encountered on his journey with the cultural and religious background he had grown up with. He began to see that he didn't have to reject his roots to embrace a more universal spirituality. Instead, he could use his own tradition as a starting point for a broader understanding of the divine. As months passed, Amir's transformation became evident to those around him. His family noticed a new sense of peace about him, and even his business associates commented on his more compassionate and mindful approach to leadership when he occasionally checked in on company matters. However, not everyone in Amir's life understood or approved of his new path. Some old friends accused him of abandoning his faith, while others dismissed his spiritual seeking as a midlife crisis. These reactions were painful, but Amir found strength in the support of his new community of seekers and in the inner certainty that he was on the right path. 1 year into his sabbatical, Amir felt called to put his newfound wisdom into action. He decided to use his business acumen and resources to create a foundation dedicated to promoting interfaith understanding and spiritual growth. The foundation would sponsor educational programs, fund research on the benefits of contemplative practices, and create spaces for people of different faiths to come together in dialogue and shared experience. As he worked on bringing this vision to life, Amir reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. He realized that the emptiness he had felt at the beginning of his quest wasn't a curse, but a blessing, a divine discontent that had spurred him to seek a deeper truth. The material success he had achieved in his earlier life now served as a tool to help others on their own spiritual journeys. Amir's foundation quickly gained attention, attracting support from progressive religious leaders and secular humanists alike. He found himself speaking at conferences, writing articles, and even appearing on talk shows to discuss the importance of spiritual literacy in an increasingly interconnected world. Through it all, Amir remained committed to his own practice of meditation and contemplation. He knew that to be an effective bridge builder between different faiths and philosophies, he needed to remain grounded in his own direct experience of the divine. As the Foundation's work expanded, Amir had the opportunity to travel to different parts of the world, meeting with spiritual leaders and communities across various cultures. These experiences further deepened his understanding of the universal human quest for meaning and connection. During a visit to a remote monastery in the Himalayas, Amir had a profound realization. As he sat in meditation alongside monks who had dedicated their lives to spiritual practice, he understood that the divine he had been seeking was not something separate from the world, but the very essence of all existence. Every person he had met, every challenge he had faced, every moment of joy and sorrow, all were expressions of this ultimate reality. This insight filled Amir with an overwhelming sense of love and compassion for all beings. He saw that the purpose of his journey wasn't just personal enlightenment, but the alleviation of suffering and the promotion of understanding among all people. Returning home, Amir brought this expanded vision to his work with the Foundation. He initiated projects that combined spiritual practice with social action, encouraging people to see service to others as a form of devotion. The foundation sponsored interfaith volunteer programs, bringing people from different religious backgrounds together to work on community projects. As the years passed, Amir watched with joy as seeds of understanding and cooperation began to sprout in communities touched by the Foundation's work. Interfaith friendships blossomed, prejudices dissolved, and people began to recognize the common humanity that united them beyond their differing beliefs. Of course, there were still challenges and setbacks. Religious extremism and intolerance continued to cause conflict in many parts of the world. But Amir remained steadfast in his belief that by fostering personal spiritual growth and creating opportunities for meaningful interfaith encounters, lasting change was possible. Now in his 60s, Amir often thought back to that fateful day when he had first stepped into the little bookshop. He marveled at the journey that had unfolded from that single moment of openness to something new. The restless seeker he had been had transformed into a serene guide, helping others navigate their own spiritual paths. One crisp autumn morning, as Amir sat in his garden reflecting on his life's journey, he was struck by a profound sense of gratitude. He was grateful for the emptiness that had once plagued him, for it had been the catalyst for his transformation. He was grateful for every teacher, every book, every challenge that had shaped his path. Most of all, he was grateful for the endless mystery of existence that continued to unfold before him each day. As he watched a leaf spiral gently to the ground, Amir smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. He knew that his journey was far from over. In fact, it was eternally beginning anew with each breath. But he no longer felt the anxious need to arrive at some final destination. He had learned that the real treasure was in the journey itself, in the continuous unfolding of life's great mystery. In that moment, Amir recommitted himself to the path of the seeker, not just for his own growth, but as a way of serving others. He vowed to continue sharing the wisdom he had gathered, always remaining open to new insights and experiences. For he had learned that true spirituality was not about having all the answers, but about living the questions with an open heart and a curious mind. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Amir stood up, ready to embrace whatever the new day might bring. He knew that somewhere out there, another seeker was just beginning their journey, feeling that same restlessness he had once felt. And he hoped that in some small way, the work he had done and the path he had walked might help light the way for those who would come after him. With a heart full of love and a mind open to infinite possibilities, Amir stepped forward into the next chapter of his ever-unfolding spiritual adventure. The journey, he knew, was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Again and again, in each precious moment of this mysterious and beautiful life. As Amir stepped forward into the next chapter of his spiritual adventure, he felt a renewed sense of purpose coursing through his veins. The garden around him seemed to pulse with life, each blade of grass and fluttering leaf a testament to the interconnectedness of all things. He took a deep breath, savoring the crisp autumn air, and allowed his mind to wander to the countless possibilities that lay ahead. His thoughts turned to the foundation he had built, and the lives it had touched. He envisioned it growing beyond his wildest dreams, becoming a beacon of hope and understanding in a world often divided by misunderstanding and fear. But he also knew that true change began with individuals, with small moments of connection and revelation. As if on cue, Amir's phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a message from Sophia, his dear friend and fellow seeker from all those years ago. She was organizing an interfaith retreat and wanted his input on how to create a truly transformative experience for the participants. A smile spread across Amir's face as he read her enthusiastic words. This was exactly the kind of work that energized him, that made him feel alive and purposeful. He began to formulate a response, his mind already brimming with ideas. Perhaps they could incorporate elements from various spiritual traditions, meditation practices from Buddhism, the whirling of the Sufi dervishes, the contemplative prayer of Christian mystics. But more than that, he wanted to create spaces for genuine dialogue, for people to share their doubts and fears as well as their moments of transcendence. As he typed, Amir reflected on how far he had come from the disillusioned businessman he once was. The emptiness that had once gnawed at his soul had been transformed into a wellspring of compassion and wisdom. He realized that his journey had never been about filling a void, but about expanding his heart to embrace the fullness of life, with all its joy and sorrow, its questions and mysteries. Just then, a gentle breeze rustled through the garden, carrying with it the distant sound of children's laughter. Amir paused in his typing, lifting his gaze to the horizon. He was struck by a sudden, powerful intuition that his work was far from done. In fact, it felt as though he was standing on the threshold of something even greater than what he had already accomplished. What if, he mused, the foundation could expand its reach to include programs for children and young adults, to nurture a generation of open-hearted, spiritually literate individuals who could bridge the divides of religion, culture, and ideology. The idea took root in his mind, growing and branching out with exciting possibilities. Energized by this new vision, Amir finished his message to Sophia, adding a note about his budding idea for youth programs. As he hit send, he felt a familiar stirring in his heart, the call of the seeker's path, beckoning him towards new horizons of understanding and service. With a spring in his step, Amir made his way back to the house. He had calls to make, ideas to flesh out, and plans to set in motion. But first, he would sit in meditation, grounding himself in the silence that had become his most trusted guide. As he settled onto his cushion, Amir closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The restlessness that had once driven him to seek answers outside himself had been transformed into a deep, abiding peace. Yet, paradoxically, this peace was not static or complacent. It was alive, dynamic, forever urging him towards greater love, deeper understanding, and more committed action in the world. In the quiet of his meditation room, Amir felt profoundly grateful for the journey that had brought him to this moment. But even more, he felt grateful for the journey that lay ahead, for the lessons yet to be learned, the people yet to be met, the wisdom yet to be uncovered. As he sank into the depths of meditation, Amir held in his heart a prayer for all seekers everywhere. May they find the courage to ask the difficult questions, he thought. May they discover the beauty that lies beyond the boundaries of belief. And may they come to know, as he had, that the true destination of the seeker's path is not some far-off place of enlightenment, but the ever-present, ever-unfolding miracle of life itself. With that thought, Amir let go of all striving and simply rested in the awareness of being. In that spacious silence, he felt more alive, more connected, and more purposeful than ever before. The journey continued, moment by moment, breath by breath, forever new, forever now,